There are a few line tools in Illustrator, and as their name would suggest, they generate lines in one form or another. Now, we're going to look specifically at the line tool and the spiral tool and two grid tools during this movie. We're not going to look at one of the line tools, which is known as the arc tool, because there are so many other ways to achieve what it does, and it's really for a particular and very specific way of working. So let's begin then with the line tool. You can access that by tapping the # key on your keyboard, although here it is nested with the rectangle and other basic shape tools just here. And probably unsurprisingly, if you click and drag with that, you'll get a line. If you hold down Shift while you're drawing, it will constrain it to 45-degree angles. And if you hold down the Alt or Option key, it will do that from the center. And of course, adding Shift draws it from the center and constrains it. And it sounds like I'm mocking that tool, but it is actually surprisingly useful. And just as with the shapes, by the way, if you simply click, you can determine a length and an angle and so on from there as well. Now I'm going to get the spiral tool next, which we customized earlier in our toolbox. If you haven't done that, then of course you can pop along to the ellipsis down at the bottom here and customize your own toolbox too. But the spiral tool relates in many ways to the star tool that was examined in the previous movie. And you can see that as I click and drag, it's drawn from the center like so. If I hold down the Command key or Control key, then I can change the decay rate, which is how spirals are drawn. And the arrow keys allow me to add more or less line segments up and down there, respectively, changing those. You can also flip these over by tapping the R key on your keyboard. And again, just as with the other tools, you've got a dialog to do exactly that as well. So let's cancel out of that and go to the next tool in the little set that we made. And I'll go to the rectangular grid tool next. And this allows us to create a rectangular grid. And you can use the left and right arrow keys here to change the number of vertical lines and the up and down arrow keys to change the number of horizontal lines. And this is one of those tools that I keep in my tool set ready to hand. So it's really easy for me to access. I actually create a smaller tool panel with this in because I do use it very, very frequently. It's a very handy construction tool to have. Holding down Shift, of course, will also lock that to a regular constrained shape. And what it actually creates at the end, as with the polar grid tool we're going to look at right now, is a group. But we'll examine that in just a moment. So let's get the polar grid tool, and with this one, the left and right arrow keys change the number of dividers, like so, and the up and down arrow keys change the number of concentric circles, like so. Now, you can actually offset these as well. If I just delete that one and click for the dialog, you can actually skew those. So if you don't want them all to be dead regular, okay, then of course you can do that. And you can see how the dividers there have been skewed. Okay, so if I draw that now, then it's all skewed like so. Now, there are keys that allow you to change that skewing. And in fact, I think it's the C key, it is, for the concentric circles, and the X key to change those the other way. And it's the F key, and I think the other key is possibly around that region as well for you to change the dividers. But what I tend to do when I want to reset them is just set the skew values to 0 in the dialog, because trust me, it is the most fuss-free way to actually achieve that. And just finally, to wrap up this particular movie, I mentioned that it creates a group. It's actually a couple of groups, okay, that it actually makes here. And when we examine groups later on, you'll find out more about what I'm about to do here, which is just basically going in to one of these groups. And if I just pull this away, you can see there's a group there made of the circles. And in fact, all of the lines here are a group as well. But we'll examine that more in the next chapter.